Hi and welcome to another video from the CTAD Clinic. My name's Dr. Mike Lloyd and I'm their clinic director. So this is a part 2 video. The first part was looking at the question that had been posed to me by some subscribers on the channel about what it's like to not be dissociative and trying to make sense of the experience of a not dissociative person to make a comparison with those of you who are dissociative or therapists who are working with dissociative people to try and help with understanding what that experience is like. So my comparisons as a non-dissociative person, who I might call an associative person, let's say. So I'm picking up the experience from myself and then comparing it against people who I've met through clinical practice over many, many years to try and really understand these differences. And the other bit that I'm putting into this video is to get an awareness of where some of these issues may have come from. So what is it that I've gone through that might have made me an associative person that might not have happened or not have happened in the right way or been sort of changed in some way as a result of traumatic childhood experience that can fundamentally shift the nature of experience for traumatized people, and that might lead into dissociation, or it might just develop an understanding of why so many difficulties exist in life for dissociative people. So the video today I'm going to be looking at more about memory and reality testing and how this is built into the attachment framework that many people with dissociation who have complex traumatic childhoods find extremely difficult, and we would label as, say, an insecure or a sort of a dysfunctional type attachment system. And I'm going to use the concept of object permanence as a way of being able to sort of develop the foundation stone for this. So in the first video, I looked at social smiling, and in this video, I'm looking at object permanence. Now, this isn't a be-all and end-all of things. It's simply a way of being able to demonstrate what might take place, and if it goes wrong or if it is done differently or away from the normal developmental process, something that Jean Piaget would have thought about as being the standard foundation stone of our development of personality and sense of self, then we can see all the things that might go wrong. So object permanence is something that has been agreed that is an absolute necessity in human development, and without this pretty much everything would be a complete nightmare in real life. So it's something that should really take place for infants between the age of about 4 and 12 months. So it's a bit of an open window as when this takes place, but realistically, by about the age of 1, every infant should have developed object permanence. And I would argue that that pretty much everybody does, but the way that object permanence might be handled in childhood and the type of interactions that exist around object permanence, if those are not present, a lot of things might not work very well. So object permanence, to put it in very basic terms, is the knowledge that an object is still there when you can't see it. So if you give, let's say, a 2 or 3 month old infant a toy, and they're looking at the toy and it's in their hand, and then you take it out of their hand and you put it behind them, they stop, they just kind of get on with something else. There's no sense that that object has moved or it exists, but it is nowhere to be found. So as the infant grows, when you take that toy out of its hand and move it into a different place, what you'll realise is the infant starts looking for it over a period of months. So between the age of maybe 2 to 4 to 5 months, the infant has no interest in the object because it doesn't even have any sense that it exists. Then the infant moves into a sense of it's no longer in my hand, and they start looking around for it. And then when it gets older, they realise that the object is gone, and then they become upset because they can't get it, because there is something about that object that they want. And this is the development of an attachment relationship. So we see this when a baby sits in the room and the parent leaves the room, the baby really is none the wiser. But as the baby gets older and moves into infancy and early childhood, once the caregiver leaves the room, the child or the infant becomes upset because it wants that caregiver to come back. It misses them, and it's anxious that they're no longer there. It's a source of comfort. And one of the ways that object permanence develops really nicely is through the peekaboo game, which is that I can see you, I can't see you, I can see you type game, which is a fantastic game that's often played out between parents and very, very young children. And what it demonstrates is that sense that the other person still exists and there's a playful aspect to it. So peekaboo and object permanence are really closely linked, and it's a way of the child again being able to start learning to control its environment by mimicking behaviour and by having the person, the adult near them, mimicking. And there's obviously a lot of smiling, a lot of happiness taking place because it's a game, and that child learns tricks, and it learns that that parent can both be absent and still present at the same time. So a secure attachment system, like my own, would mean that when my parent left the room, I could become upset because they've left the room, but they'll come back and I'll be like, they've left the room and they've come back, all is well. And that moves to a position where eventually when the parent leaves the room, I no longer become upset because I know they're in the other room and I know at some point they're going to come back. So my reality testing through object permanence is saying, just because I can't see my caregiver doesn't mean that they're no longer there. It doesn't mean they're not here to protect me, and it doesn't mean that I'm on my own. They're just in the next room. So if something happens to me, or I get upset or stressed out, or I get hurt in any way, I know that that parent is going to come back and look after me. And all I have to do is call out. The parent comes in the room, soothes me, looks after me, makes sure everything is okay, and my secure attachment system is being reinforced on a daily basis. So every time the parent leaves the room, I know they're going to come back. That allows me then to go off to school and leave my parent and move into a completely different building with a load of people because I know my parent is in the house waiting for me when I get home. So if anything goes wrong while I'm at school, I know I can just go home and my parent will look after me and everything will be okay. And that's a really secure attachment system. And there's another developmental process. It gives me the safe basis for exploration. Now, all traumatized children will still learn object permanence, but it's the degree to which that they're going to get upset or have it reinforced in turn. So a dissociative child, let's say a traumatized child in a neglectful or abusive upbringing, is not developing that secure attachment with that parent, because when that parent comes towards them, often they get hurt, the needs are not being met, they're not getting the smiles, they're not getting the love, they're not getting the nurturing. So the attachment then between the baby and the parent or the caregiver is really going wrong, because that means that eventually when the parent leaves the room, the child's not going to care, or might be relieved that the parent has left the room, because that means they're no longer being hurt or no longer being ignored. The baby learns to look after itself. The infant, the child learns to look after itself. So the insecure attachment develops, and we see this in developmental tests, in social psychology, where we're trying to understand what attachment relationships are. So children that have been grown up in these traumatized environment, the object permanence really creates a lot of difficulty for them, because an object might be taken away from them, but it might be taken away from them through an unpleasant or an abusive system. So a child could have a toy, the adult takes it from them, and that child will never see that toy again. So it gets used to things just being absent and stop caring about them. So the attachment to objects, the attachment to people all start going a bit haywire. And everything then becomes internal for that child. They stop really seeing the outside world as something meaningful and worth caring about, because nothing lasts. Everything is taken away from them. And when caregivers leave the room, they might be happy. And when caregivers come into the room, they might be stressed and upset. So that's the opposite of what should be taking place. Now, if we take that on board and we understand that object permanence then is a developmental milestone that gives us a sense of reality. I know that something still exists when I can't see it. That's brilliant, because that means that I can put a pen down in my room, I can walk out of the room and I come back and I know that that pen still exists. When I'm outside the room, I visualize, I know the pen is there, and when I come back in the room, the pen is there and I feel happy, I suppose. It's contentment. It's like, the world is as it should be. My reality testing is fully intact. Now, for people with, let's say, Dissociative Identity Disorder, DID, or derealisation, this is simply not the case. So a lot of people with DID, they might put something down in a room, they might come back to it a few hours later and it's not there. Now that might be because the DID system has kicked in and someone else from the inside has fronted, has moved the object and put it somewhere else for various different reasons. But the lack of that being part of the developmental milestone of object permanence, if it wasn't done securely, safely, and with an attachment system, the loss of that pen can create a great deal of disharmony, distress, and upset, because it's like the same thing is happening all over again. My childhood is being repeated in my adult world. Objects are not as they should be. My reality testing is all over the place. I can't trust that I put something down or I leave something behind, it will still be there when I get back. So the fridge door might be opened and the food that should be in there ready for an evening meal has all disappeared. There's no reason for that. The dissociative system has taken place. The food has been moved or eaten without knowledge of the person at the front, and the reality testing is all a mess. So, and with derealisation, that's all about reality testing, being able to trust that the room around and that space around you is intact and as it should be. And derealisation is the movement or the changing around of the environment in a way that causes distress and upset. So when we think about object permanence and we think about attachment relationships, about people coming and going, about objects coming and going, this is very much built into the fabric of many dissociative conditions and causes a great deal of distress. Now, in my world, as an associative, as a non-dissociative person, I simply do not have to worry about this stuff. So people I care about are out there in the world, they're doing those things. I don't need them to be present in order to feel safe and comfortable with them, because I know that they're in the world, and when I see them it's great, and when they're not there I know that they're okay. So when objects are taken from me and borrowed from someone else, I know that I'm going to get that stuff back. If I put an object down and come back to it, I know it's going to be there. So what happens then, and this is the core concept that I want to get through in this video, is that I live with a sense of certainty. I am absolutely certain that an object that I put down will be exactly how I left it. So I have a Rubik's Cube and I'm really into playing the Rubik's Cube, and it's actually a patient with dissociation taught me how to use this. If I leave this exactly how it is and I put it down, when I come back to it a day, a week or a month later, it will be exactly the same because I know no one's going to have picked it up. So I have a sense of certainty about the world. And that gives me great comfort. That allows me peace and serenity. I can walk through my world knowing it's exactly as it should be. Unless someone walks into my environment and deliberately changes it or moves things around, nothing can happen to it. So I live in a sense of a certain world, that my expectations and my predictions about people I know, let's say, people I care about, people in my environment, I can predict what they're going to do, I can be certain about what they're going to do, they become reliable, and that is the essence of trust. So when we overview this whole thing, as an infant, as a baby and an infant, I was developed object permanence as a simply part of the brain's developmental process, as Piaget predicted it would be. I had games played with me, I had objects that came and went, I had people that came and went, but they're all part of the process of developing a secure attachment to people and to the world. And that secure attachment gives me a sense of certainty and reliability about people and the world, and that gives me a sense of trusting people and the world. So I'm not saying the world is a safe place or that everybody is a safe person. What I'm talking about is the familiarity, the people that are known well, the places that are known well. I surround myself with safe and securely attached people that work with my attachment system, and that gives me a sense of comfort and peace in the world, and that allows my brain an enormous amount of time to then go and exploring concepts and doing different things and taking on activities, because I'm not using the energy and the resources within myself to continually double check and question everything that's going on. Is this real? Has this changed since I last left it, and who has done that? Where is my stuff? Why have I acquired these things and I shouldn't have acquired them? Where will the things be that I knew that I have? They're simply gone. Why is that person not reliable? Why is that person not consistent? The use of energy within that space is enormous, and that creates enormous great difficulty and distress for many people that are dissociative who come from traumatized backgrounds. So again, I hope this video has been helpful. We're looking at the same sort of concepts. We're taking a sense of child development that might have then gone wrong within the traumatized childhood experience. We're looking at the different pathways that those can then take, so into whether you're sort of securely attached, healthy, non-dissociative, non-traumatized person, or a traumatized dissociative person takes off on a different tangent. And the further you move away from that developmental milestone, the greater the problems start becoming. And when we put all of these different things together, what we get is an overview of the pathway of dissociation, how the brain has these features built in, and when the milestones might be being met but in the wrong ways as a result of traumatic childhood experience, we can see that that pathway moves off in a completely different direction and creates havoc in that person's life. And that's what we see time and time again in therapy. It's the beginning of something in childhood and it's the impact of something later on in adult life, and it's huge for people to have to deal with. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm gonna do some more in this series. I might move on to another video just to sort of like do something a little bit different, but please do keep the questions coming through the community channel on the YouTube page to look at it, to let me know what kind of things you'd like me to be working on, and I'll give my reflections on this. So until we do the next video, please do all the liking, subscribing and all the usual sort of stuff. Leave comments to let me know how this is, and as always, please do take great care of yourself.